Well, hey folks, it's your old pal King Waspinator here with the second episode of Film Virgin. Tonight we have the ice cream truck killer in the house, and we're going to be watching one of 8 different films that he selected from my library, and we're going to randomly roll to see which one we're going to watch. Our choices are Flash Gordon, The Road Warrior, the original Wicker Man, Dirty Harry, the original Robocop, the original Planet of the Apes, Goodfellas, or Blazing Saddles. So, roll a die 8.
Oh well. Got a 5.
We will be watching Robocop.
Oh shit.
Alright, so, before we start, anything that you've heard or know about this movie?
I watched some trailers. Man, it's been so long. I was a kid when I first saw like a couple of glimpses of it. But other than that, I remember watching this dude get melted. That was about it. That's the only thing that I remember.
Okay, that's an iconic scene for sure, but there's a ways to go before we get to it.
Yeah.
Alright, so...
I remember him getting shot up as well.
Yeah.
And that was about it.
Okay. Well, we're going to watch Robocop, and then we'll come back afterwards, and we'll get this kid's thoughts.
This is really important because I think that what's interesting about this film is that it kind of shows what happens when policing goes misguided, when you remove the humanity out of it, because you do need it to make an accurate judgment. But I think it's telling of not just what people... The heart is there, you know, but really this is dated. This is dated in terms of how an approach to crime should be and how an approach to a lot of it should be. I think that the main theme was, in fact, that that white-collar crime does go unchecked.
The whole Directive 4 thing is a big metaphor for the idea of, like I was saying, like the police are hobbled in their ability, they're crippled from being able to actually enforce laws on the upper echelons of society because of the sheer amount of money and influence and connections they have to the people who are in direct control of the police. And in this movie, they just streamlined it by having the corporation directly controlling the police, and the whole Directive 4 thing is just taking it to a literal conclusion where you've inhibited the officer mentally from being able to do it. They can't even consider doing it.
And there was the young mind who was bringing something new to the table that had never been done before.
Jose Ferrer's character.
Reeling in his, like...
But even he seems like the good guy of the corporate bunch, but he's not. Because from the very beginning of the movie, he's like... The whole reason why Murphy was in that precinct in the first place is they took him from a safe precinct where he was a good cop with a good record and put him there because he had a high likelihood of being shot
and killed, and so they could harvest his organs, and he had that they used that judgment, and it bit him in the ass in the end, and that was the thing that was, because so they built something that was only made to destroy them in the end by, you know, just...
Well, the company survived. It fucked over Dick Jones.
It didn't trump the fact that, because they used something that whose judgment was good and true, and that's what bit them in the ass, because their own judgments and their own decisions weren't good, nor were they true in terms of justice, or what this piece delivers as justice. And I thought that was interesting that in the end the person who was one of the main crime syndicates was actually working hand in hand with the person who was policing it all. So that also does tie, like, the policing...
Well, that's kind of my... When you're asking, like, why, like, drugs are illegal and stuff, that's kind of my secret thought is that, the Mafia needed something to replace alcohol.
Yeah.
And the Mafia had money, and money equals influence, and even if it might not be able to be something that they could ever officially sanction, there's got to have been some under-the-table kind of shit amongst all the other things they used to justify making these things illegal. It's just the timing is just, well, right as we're giving up on making alcohol illegal, we'll just make all this other shit illegal that we didn't have a problem with before up until now.
A good piece of satire.
Well,
it holds up
like
in
right off the bat, like I guess give it like your basic like what you thought of it in terms of like good movie, bad movie, basic like 1 minute review. Do you recommend it and why kind of shit.
I think I would if you wanted to actually pay attention. Because if you don't, I mean, you could watch it just kind of like half-assed on the TV, but you won't really get it.
It's a fun little action movie on the surface.
Exactly. But and then that's what like all the director. What was the director's name?
Paul Verhoeven.
Paul Verhoeven. Yeah, Starship Troopers. That's kind of what it always looks. But if you really look into like what the deeper meaning of it is, you'll always find that there are these very these themes of like humanitarianism. What's the other one? A lot of hypocrisy, conflicting ideas, and like over escalated patriotism or allegiance to a certain delegation or organization to the point where it kind of blinds you in judgment.
No, I believe Paul Verhoeven is Dutch. If he's not Dutch, and he's from Denmark, but if he's Dutch, the Netherlands were one of the countries that were like right next to Germany and was occupied by the Germans during World War II. So he's has his own, I guess, personal cultural reasons for being wary of like fascist institutions and America's own particular flavor of such things.
This might be difficult for some newer generations to watch. I have a taste for it because I grew up with it a little bit, or at least movies like it, and so I can appreciate it. But I feel like some newer like audiences might see it and they're like, oh, that's not really all that right, and then they'll just completely blank out from like the major themes.
Oh, like of all the things you reacted to while watching it, I thought was odd is at the very beginning you were kind of thrown off by how cavalier people were about firearms. So like, I wonder if it's because your generation might have more sensitivity to guns because of having been raised and gone to school during the era of, is there going to be a school shooting today? Whereas I didn't have to put up with any of that shit. That all started as soon as I was out of high school.
I didn't even know, I didn't even know that our doors were bulletproof until like probably high school. And then I realized, all the fucking doors are like,
and there's a reason for that.
Yeah, and I didn't even know growing up, and it wasn't like, I never thought it was a threat. And then there was that one time where it's like, all right, we're doing a drill, and I'm like, what's the drill? And it's just like, just hide in the fucking corner, and then they turn off the lights. All right, just chill. And it's like, is this for a fire?
I had to, when I was in elementary school, and it stopped around that time because it didn't go any further than that, but I do have memories of having to do nuclear drills where we're all told to go hide under our desks in case of it, because that's going to stop you. That inch of plywood is going to save you from the nuclear blast. It's more so that if the roof collapses, you're more likely to survive not being pinned under shit.
But that radiation,
but it's not gonna
melt you before you even fucking.
And well, if you're that close to the blast, you're fucked anyway. It's more for people at the outer perimeters where the immediate radiation isn't a problem, but it's the concussive wave set off by the bomb that's the issue.
And you mentioned that like cavalier, but what I learned, because I've read a lot about people who've gotten into gun accidents. I've read a lot and I've seen a lot of videos, like fucking just videos of people like not even paying attention to guns, and it's just like 1 second. Like a man, I was watching this video of a fucking man on like Live Leak where he was like in Iraq. This like probably would have been like 30 years old at the time, Marine, decked out and all this equipment, and then there's like this, and what they would do is the snipers would have like a fucking camera mounted up to their scope and they could film it, and they filmed it for propaganda. And they filmed fucking United States soldiers getting sniped. And I watched like just a handful of people and then they were walking down the same alley too. Like, and they would clear out the body and then they would just do it again. And then like just a fucking United States soldier, and then it was so fucking quick.
I've watched our own military's helicopter footage. Where they'll be like just gunning people down from a distance and shit.
You don't twirl a fucking gun. You're gonna take someone's head off.
You're much more distant from the media environment.
I know the power of it.
Because like, as I say, this movie is kind of like, as much as it is a work of cyberpunk fiction, and
katana. You respect the blade.
it's also I think part of what gives this movie the tone it has is low key it's a television western from the '60s.
I can see that.
It's got a little bit of that Bonanza kind of flair, you know.
It kind of makes it seem more free.
Like it's really noticeable at the beginning of the movie and very noticeable at the ending of the movie, but throughout most of the movie, it's not a western, but it's bookended by very western tropes.
Yeah.
But I don't know. As I say, to me, like the thing I find that I think the movie is really most about, or at least the theme that I find the most resonance with is his whole story of Murphy regaining his independence and figuring out who he is again and being able to call himself by his own name and shit.
But he went through the machine.
But what other kind of stuff were you picking up out of it?
I saw okay, one thing that I think was a little weird in all of his films is he has this like sort of these scenes where like women and men will be naked in the same room, and I kind of like it, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's possible.
It made more sense in Starship Troopers because the entire society was like so propagandized that you didn't really get much of a sensation that crime was rampant. There really wasn't much indication that there was poor people. Everyone seemed to be like doing fairly well, and there didn't seem to be like everyone seemed to be actually fairly happy and healthy, and so there didn't seem to be like a rape-heavy kind of culture, so it would make more sense that they would be casual about that kind of stuff. But that's also centuries in the future. And Robocop, that's like too soon. And in the middle of the same movie, like Robocop is busting up a rape scene. So the idea that like the guys and the girls are all going to be like that casual together in the shower, I mean, for all I know, they might actually do that in real police stations, but not that I've ever heard.
What you said about rape culture? And like how that existed in this, like, and then like the mentality of like the police officers and the women in that situation, like, yeah, that would have never occurred. But I also think that one thing that it kind of glazed over was like the real situation of crime, the real like what is the like. They didn't talk about poor people, and all the villains were really like over the top, you know, like, oh, we're just bad because we're bad.
A little bit. There's elements of that, like
that one black dude who's
some of his goons with their like weird laugh, like,
why are they like so?
I took her out.
They're not psycho. Like they really aren't psychos.
It's almost like the kind of people you'd expect to be like in Joker's gang from Batman. That's probably why Robocop translated well into comic books. There's a lot of successful Robocop comic books over the years.
Because it's very comic-y, kind of.
Yeah. Like I said, it's not supposed to be a gritty, realistic piece of science fiction. It's like I was trying to say, it's like it is serious subject matter, but it's also a '60s western, and so there's an exaggeratedness to everything, and then also you have like the Verhoeven staples of like. The way he used the news and the fake commercials is not the same, but reminiscent of the propaganda reels that would play in Starship Troopers.
Yep. And those propaganda reels were kind of like those are really telling, and like because it kind of shows what like the public's view is with you know, with then that fleshes out the context more of that particular film. But I think that It kind of was short-sighted. Like it didn't really see in terms of what poverty was actually doing, because it never was never like a poor dude, you know, trying to fucking make ends meet. It was these rich assholes just trying to make more money.
The petty criminals, like the guy holding up the gas station with the old lady and her husband.
That was crazy oversold. I was like, what the fuck, man.
And the redneck guy, the redhead dude who got melted at the end, like he probably fucking started off in some trailer park somewhere and crap, you know.
Those are the only flaws of the film.
I've heard a couple people like over the years describe RoboCop as a perfect movie. And there's elements of it that I agree. Like I consider the ending that is a perfect ending.
Like, what the fuck?